Kia ora.
Kia ora. When we were dating, something in the chemistry between us was spiritual. I guess that's true of many Catholic families. On the Sunday after Raywin moved into the student flat next door, she walked to Mass at the cathedral. I did not notice her walking along and drove right by, but redeemed myself on the way home by offering her a ride in my little Ford Escort.
So we knew from our first encounter that the faith was very important to both of us.
When we married, we had just 11 months before we became 3, and we just became incredibly busy. I was constantly impressed by Raywin's mothering skills.
Sunday Mass was our meeting place with my grandparents. We knew just about everyone in the congregation, but especially those in the cry room.
Then we moved away from our support network. Eventually we ended up in Wimbledon, London on a diplomatic posting. Exciting, but isolated, as only immigrants will fully understand. Wimbledon Parish had about 20 teams, teams of Our Lady as they were known then. We were invited to join a newly formed team with 4 couples we hardly knew. Very soon we realised how supportive teams would be. 40 years later we still keep in touch and many are still active in Teams UK. First thing they asked us was, do you want to go on a marriage encounter weekend for our 10th wedding anniversary? We'll look after your kids, they said, boisterous colonial kids. Fast forward again and we're back in Hamilton and semi-retired.
Steve has a guest from London, Bishop Nicholas Hudson, the auxiliary bishop of Westminster. And chatting to him, we found that before he became bishop, Bishop Nick was parish priest of Wimbledon.
He was raised in the parish and his parents were in Teams. A school days girlfriend lived at the end of our street. He knew the people who had supported us. He spoke warmly of Teams to Bishop Steve. So why are Teams still very important to us today, second time round? Growing in the faith today is a challenge. The ways we communicate have changed. The clergy are stretched to breaking point. COVID has made us more cautious about who we associate with. Some jobs have disappeared. Online schooling. Couples are just under pressure in so many ways.
We get our spiritual nourishment from our team members, from our couples.
The sit down encourages us to work on our relationship as a couple and with God. Our fellow Teamsters inspire us by sharing their spiritual insights. We are an ethnically diverse team, and that's a blessing too. Our team is not a social club, though we have many light-hearted moments sharing our highs and lows over a simple meal. The topics we talk about stay in the team so we can raise our anxieties and expect an empathetic, non-judgmental ear. Our team is a bubble. Over summer we met outdoors and wore masks to reduce the COVID risk. Teams couples are like-minded. They start off unconnected, and it is beautiful to see how the friendships develop. We listen to and learn from each other. Raywin and I recommend Teams to couples who value their married spirituality. God bless you all.
Tēnā koutou katoa, my name's Steve Lowe, and for my sins I've been asked to speak about Pope Francis's encyclical Amoris Laetitia, the joy of love, from the perspective of the hope and support it offers for married couples, and the challenges facing Catholic marriage. 240 pages, and I've got 20 minutes to do this. Yeah, get real. So how am I going to do this? I'm going to take a topic that's dear to our heart at the moment, the COVID-19 pandemic, because I don't know if you've realised, but there's a virus out there and it's attacking marriage as we know it. We all know that there's a pandemic out there, but I think there's another pandemic. It's one that's reaching into our very marriages and our society. One of the criticisms Pope Francis gets about his encyclicals is that they're too sociological. But that's actually part of their genius, because he's talking to people about real things happening to real situations and their lives. And in this document, when he's talking about the pandemic that's infecting our marriages, he starts off by talking about extreme individualism. And we know this in so many ways in our lives. One of the things that I like doing when I'm preparing a couple for marriage is saying, so what's marriage? And one of the young couples that were just speaking to me recently said, marriage is growing together. It's growing better together. And I thought, yeah, that's brilliant definition. It's not focused on me, but it's focused on us, and that we need each other to grow. Not only does Francis talk about extreme individualism, but he talks about our consumerist world, and he says that this is impacting on our relationships. He talks about the speed with which people move from one effective relationship to another. They believe along the lines of social networks that love can be connected or disconnected at the whim of the consumer, and the relationship quickly blocked. It's interesting, isn't it, that in this consumerist age, it's all about possessing something. The origins of the word possess mean to have and to hold. You know, that's the vow that you couples make on your wedding day, to have and to hold. But it's not a possession that you grasp hold of, because it's a possession that's rather a taonga, as the Māori would say in New Zealand, a treasure. They talk in Aotearoa, New Zealand, about their monga, their mountain, their awa, and these are like sacred treasures to them that help them ground them where they are, that are a source of life for them. And that's what each of the couples in a marriage should be, a source of life for each other. But our world is captivated by possessions and possessing things. One of the things lockdown has taught us is about the joy of living simply, the joy of family, the joy of love. Well, a lot of families learnt that. But even this morning I had somebody from a small community saying in their little town, domestic violence went up 200% in this last lockdown that we've just finished in New Zealand. You know, our world is infecting our marriages in so many ways. In the same way, Pope Francis also challenges the Church to look at how it presents marriage to the young people or to married couples of our time. Too often, he writes, we present marriage in such a way that its unitive meaning, its call to grow in love, and its ideal of mutual assistance are overshadowed by an almost exclusive insistence on the duty of procreation. Nor have we always provided solid guidance to young married couples, understanding their timetables, their way of thinking, and their concrete concerns. At times, we've also proposed a far too abstract and almost artificial theological ideal of marriage, far removed from the concrete situation and practical possibilities of real families. Marriage is just not a theology, it's much more. It's an invitation to an adventure of love and fidelity and mutual self-giving that can be so transformative and very much reflect the very heart of our God. So the Church and our world both have to look at what they're doing to influence marriage for the good or for the bad. And married couples have to look and ask, what's influencing me? What's influencing us and helping us in our marriage, helping it to grow? And what's the danger we've got to watch out for? In so many ways, I think Teams provides a real antidote to the viruses affecting marriage today. One of the striking things of the pandemic, or our response to the pandemic, is the lockdown. And it's forced families to stay together, and it's forced them to rise up to the challenge to engage more as families, to enter into dialogue. And isn't that what the sit-down is all about for couples and teams? Listen to what Pope Francis says about dialogue. Dialogue is essential for experiencing, expressing, and fostering love in marriage and family life. Yet it can only be the fruit of a long and demanding apprenticeship. You know, when a couple's really young, they can't stop talking to each other. They're wanting to explore each other and explore the other more and more. But so often you hear of families where couples no longer are able to talk to each other. Francis talks about the different generational gaps between young people and older adults. They speak different languages and act in different ways. In lots of ways, we're always learning how to speak. I remember many years ago asking a couple who had been married 50 years to speak to teenagers who were preparing for confirmation about their marriage. So much of their communication wasn't about what they said, but just the way they looked at each other. They didn't need to say so much anymore. Their ability to dialogue had just changed in so many ways over the years. But it is an apprenticeship. It has to be practiced. And that's why the sit down is so important. Putting aside, locking out everything and everyone else out of your bubble as couple, and just focusing on each other and your marriage together. This is the apprenticeship that you're invited to take part in. And Francis says that takes time, quality time. And that's what the sit down is all about. It really is about being disciplined to making good quality time for your sit down, but also just don't confine it to the sit down. Open it up for other possibilities in your daily lives as well. Another feature of the pandemic that we're getting used to is that of masks. It's all about stopping contamination and being with other people and sharing time with other people in a way that's not going to impact on our health. In the same way, I think we too have to be masked in our relationships. And what do I mean by masked in our relationships? Watch what's coming out of your mouth. We live in an age that has a COVID of criticism and negativity. We're always called, however, in the Christian way of doing things, to look for the good, to look for the good and to promote that rather than focus on evil or the bad, because if we do that, we'll soon look for that all the time, and we'll have this attitude of always putting the other down. Masks are about protecting the spread of negativity. At your wedding day, you promise to love and honour each other all the days of your life, similar to the promise a priest makes to his bishop of respect and obedience. This honour and respect, how is that carried through? One of the people I used to work with many years ago would never put his wife down in public. While other people at work were putting their wives down, he would say, "No, not Fred." That's what he called his wife. Her name was actually Margaret. "No, not Fred. She's my best mate." And whenever we would have drinks after work, he'd only stay for one. "No, I want to get home to be with Fred." He took that respect for his wife and honoured his wife in every moment of his life. And that's the challenge for us. Again, when I'm preparing couples for marriage, I say to them, if your marriage is going through, or your relationships is going through a difficult patch, don't go to other people that are going through a breakdown or have been through a breakdown. Go and talk to the ones with a happy marriage, because they're the ones that are going to be able to give you another perspective. And this is the challenge that Pope Francis puts before us in the section on joy and beauty in Amoris Laetitia. Never losing sight of the beauty of the other person. Never losing sight of the joy of your marriage. In a consumerist society, he says, the sense of beauty is impoverished, and so joy fades. Everything is there to be purchased, possessed, or consumed, including people. Tenderness, on the other hand, is a sign of love free of selfish possessiveness. It makes us approach a person with immense respect and a certain dread of causing them harm or taking away their freedom. Loving another person involves the joy of contemplating and appreciating their innate beauty and sacredness, which is greater than my needs. It's a beautiful challenge he puts before us, to always contemplate the beauty of the other. In our world today, where so much is disposable, it's the joy and beauty that should really attract us. And we have to watch out for that virus that calls us towards the fleeting and the shallow. Masks remind us that we have to be respectful of others and not to spread negativity. One of the things that really surprises me about Amoris Laetitia is that Pope Francis doesn't talk about honesty in relationships. In lots of ways, I think that's what signing in with the QR codes is all about. Signing in to where we've been, to being honest where we've been so that things don't spread and that we're able to stop the spread of this virus. One of the privileges I have as a priest is sitting in the confessional, and I hear all sorts of things. But every now and then I hear about infidelity in marriage. And one of the things I'll say to the person at times is, so have you been to have a check whether you've got a sexually transmitted disease or not? And there's just this look of horror comes across their face. But that's the reality, isn't it? What are they bringing into their marriage? It's just not what are they bringing in terms of their heart or their way of thinking, but it's actually what disease could they possibly be bringing into their marriage. This is the challenge. So much in our society mitigates us about being honest to each other, and yet that's the biggest issue in marriage. The more a couple is able to be completely honest with nothing hidden from the other, the more that they will be able to grow in their trust of each other and grow together. In the same way, it's all about checking in with our daily love. And Francis has a section on that where he uses St. Paul's letter to the Corinthians. It's one that we know so well. Love is patient, love is kind, love is not jealous or boastful. It's not arrogant or rude, and da-da-da-da-da. It goes on and on. We've heard it before at so many weddings, but it's out there. It's about our love, Francis says. So scratch out the word love and listen to this. God is patient. God is kind. God is not jealous or boastful. Because all these things of love must be true of God. But then scratch out love and scratch out God and put your own name there. Peter is patient. Penny is kind. Peter is not jealous or boastful. Penny is not arrogant or rude. Our daily love, our little checklist of signing in and thinking, have I been like that to the other? I often say when I have this reading to couples, don't keep the reading in the church. Stick it on your mirror or your fridge at home, and each day check in yourself and ask, is this true for you? Because marriage takes work, it takes honesty, and we really need to be honest about what we're putting in to all our relationships. Another feature of the pandemic that we're asked to do is social distancing. It's about living in your bubble, protecting yourselves and keeping you safe. And in the same way, we need to do that with our marriages as well. And I think that's really about taking the time together, isn't it? Doing things together. I remember when I was a parish priest, and I was about to go on holiday, and I got called to see someone urgently, and the wife was dying. It was happening very quickly, much quickly than they expected, and she died later that evening. But one of the things the husband said to me, he says, "I've no regrets. We always took time to smell the roses." I think social distancing is remembering that you are marrying for love. A love that, as Francis said, reveals itself and increases. He said, if two persons are truly in love, they naturally show this to others. So how do you show your love for each other? How do other people know that you are still in love, that you are still growing in love? One of the things that it's so easy for people to do today is get caught up in the busyness of the lives of the kids. Or there's so many demands about getting the perfect house, or saving up for the holiday, or for doing this and for that. And the time, the most valuable of all commodities, gets left behind. And this is where we need that social distancing from all those pressures outside. Your marriage is the most important vocation. You know, if your marriage vocation is not important, more important than being the vocation of parents, then the kids are going to suffer. You've got to start with yourselves, having that time for yourselves, having those date nights, going for a walk hand in hand, whatever. You find the way. But the more that you're able to give to that, the more it's going to flow into your children, and then into their children or their friends, and into the wider parish community or community around you. But start with yourself. Social distance, and keep your marriage as the most important treasure of your lives. And finally, in this pandemic, be vaccinated. Remember, I'm talking about the pandemic affecting marriage and families. Let's not lose sight of the metaphor and get caught into the politics of vaccination. Inject your marriage with the love of Christ. The last section of Amoris Laetitia is on the spirituality of marriage. It's all about Christ's love and about how that love needs to take flesh and real and concrete lives. And that's what Pope Francis says. The Lord's presence dwells in real and concrete families, with all their daily troubles and struggles, joys and hopes. Living in a family makes it hard for us to feign or lie. We cannot hide behind a mask. If that authenticity is inspired by love, then the Lord reigns there with his joy and his peace. You know, love and marriage takes discipline. You know, I promise to be true to you in good times and in bad. There's a discipline in that. Notice the connection between the word discipline and disciple. And we're all disciples of the Lord Jesus, who is the one who models self-giving love, who models total faithfulness. And he's the one who calls us evermore to live his life, to live his love, and to bring into our marriages his spirituality of mutual self-giving love. We're reminded of that every time we celebrate the Eucharist. This is my body that is given for you. It's the language of marriage. It's the spirituality of marriage. It's just not for 1 hour on the day that you are married. It's not just for 1 hour on a Sunday. It's every day. This is my body that is given for you. The meditation on that alone is enough to sustain any marriage for life, if we're true to it, if we're disciplined in following his example. So there's a whole lot of stuff there in Amoris Laetitia. My advice is, don't try to read it all in one hit, but rather pick out bits like I have today and use these as part of your sharing when your team meets together. There's a real treasure there. I hope it's a treasure for you, a taonga for you. I hope it enriches you and your marriage. God bless you all.